Hello, the doc is in, and welcome back to another chapter of Tokyo Revengers, chapter 269. Nice. All things must pass. In the last chapter, basically you have Takemichi and Mikey going back and forth, right? Everybody's hyping up Takemichi for getting that one hit off, but Mikey's like, it's not that deep. He only got one hit off, and he comes back with a vengeance. And though Takemichi's able to keep up at first, Mike starts applying that pressure, and when he gets his knocks Takemichi down, he then reveals that his brother, Big Bro Shinichiro, was indeed a time leaper, and that he was trying to save him from this path, apparently. And yeah, that's what we get for last chapter, and let's just hop into this chapter. So starting off, we're in a flashback. This whole chapter's flashback, and whose flashback is it? It's Shinichiro's. We're getting Shinichiro's perspective, and this is the original timeline. That's an important detail because events are going to happen in this chapter in reference to what we know the timeline to be. Doesn't add up, but there's only part one of the flashback. I'm sure we're at least gonna get one more part to get an explanation. So let's begin. So we start off with the first generation Black Dragons. They're riding off all together, led by Shinichiro, obviously the captain, and he has Mikey with him, and Takomi and Shinichiro and of course Benkei and Wakasa are all talking or whatever. And Shinichiro's like, I'm Mikey's father figure and everything, so I gotta teach him, show him the ways. And Takomi's kind of like, I don't know if I vibe with the idea of like your younger brother learning from a bunch of gang members. Waka and Benkei, they basically say he's kind of stupid, but obviously, they love their captain, so they know he has a good heart. And obviously, Shinichiro, as revered by pretty much everybody who knew him, he is a good person, though maybe not smart, but he's a teenager, so to be fair. So anyway, they're riding together, right? And so where they're all going, right? The whole first generation Black Dragons are all together, right? And they go to this area, construction site, and basically Shinichiro is disbanding the gang. Everybody's sad. This is his end of Toman moment. Everybody's crying. He's crying. He's like, you know what? We spent our teenhood together. Y'all should be proud of this. When times get tough in the future, just know we were here at one point. We were here at this one point, so keep your head high. Everybody's all sad about it, and of course they are. And that's the end, right? After this, we have Shinichiro at his father's grave. He's basically like, don't worry about it, Pops. I'm gonna take care of Emma and Mikey. Of course, with context for what happens in the future, dang, that didn't go as planned. But nonetheless, after visiting his father's grave, he's walking home, and he's like, I'm gonna get Mikey a gift. So this is where the airplane comes in, right? So he gives Mikey the airplane, right? And he specifically says, in this version of the timeline, he does not build the plane for Mikey. He specifically tells him to build the plane. So like a month later, he's already built the plane or whatever. And while Shinichiro's at work at his garage and everything, he gets a call, and basically Gramps is like, look, Mikey fell down the stairs. He was visited by D Stairs from One Piece, and he is now finished. All right, everybody's sad. We got Banji, Sanzu, no scars, Emma, and Gramps. They're all there, and they're like, what? And of course Shinichiro gets there, and he's like, what happened? And basically, as Sanzu and Baji explain, he had the airplane or whatever, and they're like, oh, we went to play with the airplane, but he said no. And of course, whatever, kids are like that. And so he runs up the stairs, and basically they say he slipped and he fell down the stairs, and when he hit his head, and then at the bottom he like hit his head, and then he just stopped moving. And so then, of course, everybody else is like super young, so the doctor like explains what's really like the full grasp of the situation. He's like, hey, look, tell Gramps and Shinichiro Mikey's in a vegetative state. He will be alive, but he's mentally dead. That's it. And Shinichiro, he's kind of blaming himself. He's like, damn, this It's rough. He destroys his plane and everything. He's devastated. But we have them 4 years later. Shinichiro's walking along with Mikey in a wheelchair. And of course, Mikey, he's alive. But again, if you have any vegetative state, if you know anybody in a vegetative state, then you kind of get it. They're alive, but it's like they're not really there. But Shinichiro's still taking care of him. They're walking along. He's like, oh, you're in middle school now. And of course, Mikey doesn't respond or anything. It's like, it's a rough situation. But this is the end of the chapter. Now, first off, I was kind of hoping to get a little bit more, because I was hoping that we would get into the part where Shinichiro like time leaps or whatever. But nonetheless, this is the end of the chapter. And in regards to the chapter, first off, heavy chapter. All right. So apparently in the original timeline, and likely where like all the time traveling stuff begins, is Mikey is the one who gets injured, and he's pretty much permanently impaired and will never be himself ever again in the original timeline, which is pretty crazy. Like I said, it's a stark contrast to literally any future with Mikey, because we say, especially coming off the last chapter where it's like, oh, we're trying to save Mikey and everything. It's interesting to think that the original timeline that I assume Shinichiro then changes the past from to kind of save Mikey is that, he fell down the stairs, and that was it. And so that kind of puts a little bit more interest on the situation with Mikey, Sanzu, and Baji, where Mikey attacks Sanzu. It suggests that like this is like a core moment where whatever happened, like this plane's going to get destroyed and something's gonna happen. In the original timeline, it seems that the person who gets injured is Mikey, and then at some point in whatever timeline ends up being the one where we're in now, Sanzu's attacked by Mikey, who by that point has dark impulses. But interestingly, it doesn't seem like Mikey has dark impulses in this version. Now, of course, we don't know this for sure, and obviously this is after his parents have died. So it's possible that, it still lines up, but it's interesting. Like I said, there's a lot of implications to this timeline. Like obviously, technically this has no bearings on the current story, but looking at these events, it's like, okay, this is going somewhere, and you still gotta try to like figure out how this connects to where we're at now. And I'll say the only thing that's guaranteed is that by this point, it doesn't seem like he is able to time travel. And in my head, under all the theories about Shinichiro being a time leaper, I kind of assumed it was kind of like in parallel to Takemichi's goal, where Shinichiro was basically an upcoming gang leader, or maybe a part of a gang, and then eventually became the leader of the gang, and that's how he created the first generation Black Dragons, whatever it was. During that time, he was time leaping, and then, to get Waka and Benkei under him, that was part of the time leaping thing, and then blah, 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 blah. But based on what's happened here, there's a possibility that it is not until maybe around this point where Mikey's in middle school, quote unquote, and it's 4 years after the incident, that he ends up becoming a time leaper. Of course, we can't know that for sure, but part of me kind of believes that, because we say once a time leaper goes back and forth, that's kind of like their consciousness leaving. So like they live out all that time, even though they're switching between time lines and stuff. So I don't see why we'd still be following Shinichiro 4 years later if he time leaped out of like, if that's not like him, his main consciousness in that body. So my guess is that from here, we don't know who the trigger is going to be, we really don't know who the trigger is going to be. It could really be anyone, but someone's going to be the trigger. And then and this is where things get interesting. I assume he's going to go back in time, actually. I was going to say it possibly goes into the future, but if he goes in the future, he can't change anything in the past. So it doesn't add up. But definitely, probably next chapter or so, we're gonna see the trigger, and then he's gonna go back in time, and then that's where we're gonna start having him start shifting things around. We'll probably maybe get like a very quick overview of like some of the timelines he creates, and maybe like some of the tragedies he ends up having to change the next timeline around, so that then he can maybe avoid all the bad stuff or whatever. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot to discuss in this. There's a lot to discuss, and there's a lot of implications for this chapter, just like with the last chapter, with just it being revealed that Shinichiro is a time leaper. With more, as we get more explanation, until it's fully raveled, we're kind of gonna have long discussion sections. That's all I'm gonna say. But for this chapter, I think we can stop here. If you like the video, leave a like. If you dislike the video, leave a dislike. Comment who do you think is going to be the trigger for Shinichiro. You have to have, it seems that for there to be a trigger, it has to be some type of common goal and strong feelings attached to whatever that goal is. So who would Shinichiro shake hands with to go back in time to save his brother? It really, I mean, it could be Emma. If Gramps is still alive, it could be Gramps. I mean, it's a number of people who it could be, but we don't necessarily know for sure. With that being said, if you like videos like these, you want to see more videos like these every week from moi, feel free to subscribe, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. I'll be here every week on the week when the chapters come out and releasing a video. Thank you for watching the video once again, and the dog is out. Peace.